So in my last video, we talked about taking the Dissidia fighting game franchise and rebooting it into my own personal dream Final Fantasy fighting game. Now, unfortunately, that idea did not go over well on TikTok. I think a lot of the people over there thought I was poo-pooing the idea of Dissidia and trying to erase what it was and, crapping on arena fighters, which was not my intention. I very much love Dissidia as well as arena fighters, and I would kill to have a fourth Dissidia that is a successful, fun arena fighter. But that's not the point of this video. I thought it would be kind of cool to turn my attention to Dissidia Opera Omnia, which is a mobile-based RPG game based on the world of Dissidia. And I've played a lot of Dissidia Opera Omnia this past year in particular because, well, what else am I supposed to do during commercial breaks of The Bachelor?
Am I able to walk you out?
No.
I thought it would be cool to take the mobile Dissidia and turn it into this really big budget, grand, epic, 60+ hour console adventure to make it a really big Final Fantasy game where all of these cool characters come together to do some cool stuff. So, starting with the story, you can do one of two things here. You can keep the tried and true Dissidia story by having all of these characters transported to the realm that Materia and Chaos reside in because they need to protect it. My only issue with that story is it's a little too simple, and simple's not always a bad thing, but in this case it kind of is, because the worlds that they're visiting end up being barren wastelands. There's no towns, there's no NPCs to visit and talk to. It just feels very empty, and that's kind of a bummer. It's Final Fantasy. You want these really huge, lively places to visit. So, thought it would be cool to flip the story on its head, and instead of having the characters travel to that realm, we have a villain like Shinryu maybe pull some Final Fantasy VII Remake Sephiroth shenanigans, and he realizes that the only way he can stop his demise is by going to each of these respective Final Fantasy worlds to destroy them. Now, doing a story like this would allow the characters to party up to travel to these respective worlds to help protect them. And I would also keep the story chapter-based with large biomes that you can explore. And the reason why I would do chapter-based is because we're going to have a pretty large cast of characters, and I want to make sure that everyone gets an even amount of screen and playtime so that way nobody feels like they're being left out. Now, speaking of characters, we would probably have our main core cast of characters that we got in Dissidia NT. And of course, the DLC characters that were in that game could also show up in their respective worlds to help out, because it would be weird if they didn't. So if you went to the world of Final Fantasy VII and Tifa wasn't there, or Barrett or Vincent in that cast just for some reason weren't there, it would feel really odd. So all of those respective characters could still show up as AI-controlled companions that could assist the party in different ways and get involved in the story and actually have conversations in the cutscenes. And in keeping with Dissidia tradition, we would take the newest mainline heroes and incorporate them into this journey as well, which means that we would have Clive from Final Fantasy XVI also join in the fight. Now, as for the battle system, you can do one of two things. You can keep that traditional Dissidia turn-based RPG battle system where you've got your three characters, they're doing their respective attacks, and then you've got that hotbar that shows all upcoming attacks, which I very much enjoy, especially when it was utilized in Final Fantasy X. It required a lot of strategery on the player's part to figure out how they were going to approach a battle. So if you had 2 character turns coming up, and immediately after that the boss had 3 turns, that would require you to kind of really figure out what you were going to do. Do you attack? Do you defend? Do you pull out a summon? Do you cast protective and healing spells? It was actually a lot of fun, and it did require a lot of depth. Or you could take the action RPG approach like they did with Final Fantasy VII Remake and have it be more action oriented. So you would have your party of 3 characters, you could switch between all of them on the fly, you could issue commands and abilities to the ones that you're not controlling, you would keep the ATB system, but you would still incorporate bravery and HP attacks. So bravery attacks you would do willy-nilly, but in order to do your HP attacks, you would have to build up your ATB bar to allow the characters to do that. Maybe that's a bit overly complicated, but I think it would be kind of cool to still have remnants of the Dissidia battle system incorporated, so you could, if you wanted to, eliminate the ATB altogether. And you could also incorporate dual tech attacks, so seeing characters like Clive and Noctis team up for an attack would be pretty cool, or even, this might be sacrilege, Cloud Cloud and Sephiroth teaming up to do an attack. So having dual techs in there would be really cool, because again, it's a very large cast of characters, and seeing them all interact is one of the coolest things about the world and games of Dissidia. Now, of course, the UI, we gotta simplify the UI. Opera Omnia has menus buried within menus that have their own menus. Trying to upgrade your characters, your equipment, as well as craft new things is a bit complicated, so this is one of those scenarios where simple is better. You could take the Crisis Core approach and just kind of adopt what they did with 7 Remake. Of course, you would have to tweak certain things with equipment screens, and you wouldn't have materia-based stuff, you would have ability menus. I'm sure they could figure that all out, but the best thing to do would be to simplify that UI. As for music, I really wouldn't change the approach they take with the music in the Dissidia games. I really love all of the original tracks as well as the arrangements, and the way they incorporate them is really cool. However, I think it would be best to keep each respective Final Fantasy OST in those worlds of Final Fantasy. So the world of Final Fantasy VI would have 6's music. Maybe you could mix things up here and there in terms of like battle themes or boss themes, but I think you'd want to keep each respective soundtrack to each respective world. As for the name, you could always keep Opera Omnia if you want. You could also simplify it, maybe turn it into like Dissidia Final Fantasy, Battle for the Realms, or, you know, War of the Crystals, or Battle for the Worlds, anything like that. Is how you could change it. And that's pretty much the video. That's how I would take mobile Dissidia Opera Omnia and turn it into this rather large, epic JRPG console experience. Let me know what you guys would do in the comments down below. Do you like this idea? Do you like the mobile game the way it is? Do you think maybe this would never happen because it would be too expensive? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.